I think the best way of describing it, or the one that I like best, is an intentional community. So it was a group of people that got together to build their own houses. So it's a little bit of town that people have set out to build for themselves.
As new parents, we didn't really know what we were going to expect. So if you go online and Google what it's like to be a first-time parent, you end up finding out that you can often get socially isolated.
None of our friends already had children, so we were worried about the isolation, particularly me on maternity leave on my own with, well, we didn't know it was going to be twins, but...
We don't necessarily need to be surrounded by our best friends in the entire world, but the neighbourliness factor, the sort of sense of community, the fact that somebody can be on your doorstep within 2 seconds if you're having a real problem is really important.
Just having somewhere around the corner to go to have a cup of tea in the middle of the day.
You can look at community living in many ways, and you could dress it up and pretend that it's terribly modern and terribly new, but on the other hand it's extremely old-fashioned, a bit like village life, to the extent that you're aware of who your neighbours are, you know who your neighbours are, but unlike a village where you maybe just have been born there, here at least all the families have chosen to move into this development.
Back in 2013, my husband and I saw an article which spoke about how older people benefit from community, both mentally and physically. And we thought that when we retire, we don't want to be sat there twitching the net curtains and wondering what was going on in the outside world. We wanted to be actively engaged. But trying to find somewhere that would build before we died was the challenge.
And for me, co-housing is about, it's both about wanting to live in a more sort of old-fashioned community. I've lived in a village before, a small village, and I really liked it, and I wanted that sort of more neighbourly feeling. But also I think community is kind of for the future. It's something about, I think it supports you to live in a more sustainable way.
So co-housing in this country is relatively new. I think there's about 10 or that are completed, maybe 20. I mean, and we're going to see more as well. But it's relatively new. It started in Denmark, and in Denmark, I think it's about 7% of all housing is provided in co-housing. In Germany, in Berlin, the government are encouraging what they call Baugruppen, group builds. So certainly in terms of a sensibility of those countries, in particular Denmark and the Netherlands, it seems like the slide into co-housing is an easier one than would be natural, I think, in this country. It would be silly to think that this is a model that everyone would want. I mean, you do have to be the kind of person that likes a collective or living collectively, and some people don't. Some people simply want to keep to themselves. But the sense of isolation that many people have, we do have a real problem in the country, both from old and young people, from loneliness and social isolation. So it absolutely answers one of the lacks that we have in this country. As a bit of town, it's it's part of a bigger area. So the idea was not to make this part separate from the rest, but to integrate it into, you know, the wider scene. So, you know, the houses all have front doors which face onto the streets that belong to everyone, which is important, I think, rather than making it something which is an enclave.
It's an area that really needed, I think, a kind of quality intervention to just give it a bit of specialness and a bit of character. You know, this area has grown, you know, very quickly. There's a lot of fairly kind of standard house builder kind of product. And I think what we've done here is kind of follow the pattern, which is to build streets and townhouses and low-rise flats, but to do it in a way that is transformatively different in terms of the, you know, the quality of the urbanism and, you know, the enjoyment of the people who live here. You know, they we can already see that they love it.
What it brought home for me is that you don't really know when you're creating a development exactly how space is going to be used. You have a lot of intentions and ideas, but what's really interesting about this project is that it's about the people who live here, and now being part of that process, even after we've completed the development, and seeing people take control and start to inhabit the space, and really seeing how people interact with it is a real privilege.
And I do like doing, I love going in the warm water. Yes, and it makes me feel human. I mean, I would love...
Like all co-housing communities, you've got a common house and then you've got shared areas. For us, that's a big shared kind of meadow, garden and a lane. And that is the place where social interaction happens. It's where children play outside a lot, they play inside, we eat together. The common house also represents an extension of our own homes, so it has a laundry, it has extra guest bedrooms, so you really don't need as large a house as you might otherwise have wanted. So it really is, the common house is the heart of the community, and those grounds around are where so much of the sort of normal social interaction you probably would have associated with a sort of old-fashioned village where people passing each other on the street and things.
It's not just about the build, it's not just about the bricks and mortar, it's about building community. I think as we go forward, the one challenge is that we are the biggest co-housing build in the UK. And so dealing with how we interact together and get everybody satisfied and on board with all the multiple of decisions we need to make is a challenge and a work in progress.
It's a simple structure which can accommodate, I think, quite a lot of change over time. So it'd be really interesting to come back in here in 5 years' time and find out what qualities it has. I hope it will be something different to what's here now, something in addition to what we've done, which will demonstrate who the people are that are living here.